Filthy redskin, you don't belong here. The cruel words sliced through the quiet night as Awinita clutched her woven cloth, her heart racing under the pale moonlight of Oklahoma, 1898. A gang of white thugs circled her, their faces twisted with hate, ripping her precious fabric, her only way to pay her foster family's debts, into shreds. Desperate, she fought back, but her mother's cherished heirloom, a necklace etched with ancient Cherokee symbols, slipped from her hands, glinting in the dirt. Thomas, a young white blacksmith with rough hands and a steady gaze, stepped in, shouting the thugs away, his eyes meeting hers with pity and strength. One attacker snatched the necklace, noticing its strange markings, and ran to report to Caleb Warrick, a ruthless land baron. By dawn, Caleb's men were at Awinita's door, accusing her of stealing a priceless artifact and threatening to seize her foster family's land unless she revealed the necklace's secret. A secret she didn't know. Fear and defiance battled in her chest as her world began to crumble. That necklace, her only link to a past she barely understood, had always been Awinita's anchor, and now it was her curse. At 24, Awinita, a Cherokee orphan raised by a poor white foster family in Oklahoma, lived caught between two worlds, accepted by neither. Her dark eyes carried the weight of loss, her parents gone before she could know them, leaving only the necklace with symbols she couldn't read but felt deep in her soul. The white townsfolk scorned her savage heritage, while some Cherokee turned away, seeing her as tainted by her life among outsiders, leaving her heart scarred yet fiercely proud. She wove intricate patterns into her cloth each day, the threads a quiet act of defiance to preserve her people's art, though it barely kept her foster parents' farm from ruin. Mary, her stern foster mother, loved her but urged her to abandon her Cherokee ways to blend in, a betrayal Awinita could never accept. Alone under the stars, she'd trace the necklace's curves, whispering prayers to ancestors she hoped still guided her. Now, with Caleb Warrick's threat closing in, her fragile life hung in the balance, and her courage was the only shield against a world set on breaking her. "You don't belong here, savage!" The shout sliced through the quiet night as Awinita hurried home under the Oklahoma moonlight of 1898, her woven cloth pressed tightly against her chest. 3 white thugs blocked her path, their sneers sharp with hate. They snatched her cloth, the result of weeks of work to pay her foster family's debts, and tore it apart, laughing as the threads fell like broken dreams. Awinita fought back, her fists clenched, but a shove sent her sprawling, and her mother's necklace, etched with Cherokee symbols, slipped into the dirt. A tall figure emerged, Thomas, a blacksmith with strong hands and a steady gaze. "Leave her alone!" he roared, scattering the thugs. One grabbed the necklace, muttering about its odd markings, and ran off. Thomas helped Awinita up, his voice gentle. "You hurt?" She nodded, her heart pounding with fear and gratitude, though she kept her distance. As he walked her home, they spoke of tough days and small hopes, their eyes meeting shyly. A flicker of warmth stirred in Awinita, but the loss of her necklace gnawed at her, a dark sign of trouble ahead. "Bring me that girl now." Caleb Warrick's voice was cold as he turned the stolen Cherokee necklace over in his hands, its symbols catching the lamplight in his lavish office. The thug from the night before had delivered it, and now Caleb, a land baron with a heart of stone, saw a chance to profit. He summoned Sheriff Boone, whose tired eyes hid a reluctant loyalty. Awinita was dragged into the room, her stomach twisting as Caleb leaned forward, his smile cruel. "You stole this artifact, girl. Tell me its secret, or I'll take your foster family's land and leave them penniless." Her mind raced. She knew nothing of the necklace's secrets, only its sacred place in her life. "I didn't steal it. It's mine," she cried, her voice shaking but firm. Caleb's men blocked the door, hands on their guns, refusing to let her go. Boone shifted, uneasy but stayed silent. Awinita's heart pounded. She faked a sob, dropping to her knees to distract the guards. When they hesitated, she lunged for a side window, forcing it open and scrambling into the alley, her breath ragged. At the market she found Thomas, her words spilling out in panic. "Caleb says I stole it!" Thomas rested a hand on her arm, solid as iron. "We'll fix this, I swear." His promise eased her fear, planting a seed of trust in her trembling heart. "Trouble follows you, Awinita." Mary's voice cut sharp inside their cramped farmhouse, her face lined with fear and anger. Word of Caleb's accusation had reached her, and she saw their fragile life crumbling. "Forget your Cherokee blood. Act like us, or you'll destroy this family." Awinita's chest tightened, torn between gratitude for Mary's care and the fire of her heritage. "My people are my heart. I can't abandon them," she said, her voice breaking with pain. Mary's eyes flashed. "Then get out of my house." The words struck like a blow, and Awinita fled to the forest's edge, where the trees seemed to hum with her ancestors' voices. She sank against a tree, tears falling, her world unraveling. Then Thomas appeared, a loaf of bread from the market in hand, his quiet presence a comfort. "Thought you might need this," he said softly. Awinita poured out her loneliness, her pride, her fear of losing everything. Thomas listened, his hand closing over hers, warm and steady. "You're stronger than they know," he said. And under the whispering leaves, Awinita felt a spark of connection, a lifeline in the chaos threatening to swallow her. "Nima, I need your help." Awinita's voice trembled as she knocked on her friend's door in the Cherokee village, her mind racing from Caleb's threats. Nima, her closest friend, opened the door, concern in her eyes. Awinita explained the accusation about the stolen necklace and the danger to her foster family's land. Nima urged her to blend in with the white townsfolk to stay safe. "Hide your Cherokee ways, Awinita. It's easier." Awinita shook her head, her jaw tight. "I won't betray my people." Nima sighed, then whispered about rumors of the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross, a shadowy group tied to powerful men like Caleb. Awinita pressed for details, but Nima knew little more. As Awinita left, Thomas found her, his face tense. "Boone's men are watching you," he warned. He offered to help her hide, and Awinita, touched by his concern, nodded. They shared a quiet moment, Thomas's steady gaze calming her fears, and she felt a growing trust in him, a small light in her darkening world. "I have to run, Mary," Awinita pleaded, standing in the farmhouse as dusk fell, her hands gripping a small sack of belongings. Caleb's men were closing in, and she needed to protect her foster mother. Mary, her face pale with fear, reluctantly agreed, terrified of losing their land. Awinita packed quickly, stuffing clothes and a knife into her sack. Thomas arrived with a borrowed wagon, volunteering to distract Caleb's men. "I'll lead them toward the river," he said, his voice firm. As Awinita and Mary slipped out the back, hooves thundered closer, Caleb's men shouting. Thomas rode off, drawing their attention, but one rider spotted Awinita and Mary. They sprinted toward the woods, but Mary stumbled and the men grabbed her, dragging her away. Awinita froze, her heart breaking, but Thomas, circling back, pulled her into the trees. "We'll get her back," he whispered, his arms around her as she sobbed, her resolve hardening to fight Caleb. Their shared desperation deepened their bond, his steady presence anchoring her grief. "We need answers, Thomas," Awinita said, her voice urgent as they hid in a dense forest clearing, the weight of Mary's capture pressing on her. Thomas suggested finding Conti, an elder known for his knowledge of Cherokee relics. They trekked through the woods, Awinita's legs aching but her determination fierce. At Conti's secluded hut, the old man studied her with sharp eyes. Your necklace is a key to a Cherokee treasure, sacred scrolls hidden from greedy hands, he said, his voice grave. He warned of the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross, a group that hunted such treasures for profit. Awinita's mind spun, the necklace's importance now clear. Thomas proposed gathering evidence to expose Caleb. We can stop him, he said, his hand brushing hers. Awinita nodded, feeling a surge of hope. As they left, their eyes locked, a silent promise forming between them, their shared mission forging a deeper connection under the starlit sky. Lillian might know something, Thomas said, leading Awinita to a quiet barn where Caleb's daughter, Lillian, often hid from her father's schemes. Awinita hesitated, wary of trusting Caleb's kin, but Thomas vouched for Lillian's discontent with her father. Lillian, sharp-eyed and restless, listened as Awinita explained the necklace and Caleb's threats. I know about the Brotherhood, Lillian admitted, her voice low. They deal in stolen relics. I can help you find proof. Awinita, still suspicious, agreed, desperate for allies. They planned to sneak into Caleb's office that night to steal documents. Thomas squeezed Awinita's hand, his worry clear. Stay close to me, he whispered, as they parted to prepare Zamaban. Awinita felt a warmth at his touch, their growing closeness a quiet strength amid the danger. That moment, brief but tender, fueled her resolve to face the risks ahead. Stay low, Awinita hissed as she, Thomas, and Lillian crept into Caleb's office under cover of darkness, the floorboards creaking beneath them. They rifled through drawers, Awinita's heart pounding as she found a ledger detailing the Brotherhood's thefts, including murders of Cherokee leaders. This is it, she whispered, tucking it under her shawl. Footsteps echoed outside, Caleb's men approaching. Awinita's pulse raced. She signaled to run, but a guard burst in, shouting. Thomas tackled him, giving Awinita and Lillian a chance to flee, but a gunshot rang out, grazing Awinita's shoulder. She stumbled, pain searing, as Lillian pulled her through a back door. Thomas caught up, his face pale at her wound. You're hurt, he said, tearing his shirt to bind her shoulder. Awinita gritted her teeth, whispering thanks, her trust in him deepening. But Lillian, separated in the chaos, was captured, leaving Awinita guilt-ridden and desperate, her injury a stark reminder of the Brotherhood's ruthlessness. You're not dying on me. The stranger's voice cut through the chaos as Awinita staggered, her shoulder throbbing from the gunshot in Caleb's office. Tawodi, a tall Cherokee warrior with piercing eyes, appeared from the shadows, scooping her and Thomas up as Caleb's men closed in. He led them through twisting paths to a hidden Cherokee camp, his movements swift and sure. Awinita's head spun, pain and fear clouding her thoughts, but Tawodi's calm strength steadied her. At the camp, he cleaned her wound, revealing he knew of her necklace but kept his secrets close. It's more than a trinket, he said, his voice low. Awinita, wary yet desperate, pressed for answers, but he only urged her to fight for her people's legacy. Thomas, watching Tawodi's ease with Awinita, felt a pang of jealousy, his face tightening. Later, by a small fire, he pulled her aside. I shouldn't have doubted you, he said, his hand finding hers. Awinita squeezed back, her heart warming at his honesty. I trust you, Thomas, she whispered, their bond deepening in the quiet night, a fragile hope amid the danger. We can't give up now. Awinita's voice was fierce as she faced Thomas in the dim light of the Cherokee camp, her shoulder bandaged but her spirit unbroken. Lillian's capture and the ledger's secrets weighed heavy, and she knew they needed more allies. Thomas suggested Sheriff Boone, hoping his unease with Caleb might sway him. They slipped into town at dawn, avoiding patrols, and found Boone at his office. Awinita held out the ledger, her hands trembling. This proves Caleb's crimes. Help us. Boone's eyes flickered with conflict, but he nodded, promising to investigate. Awinita's heart lifted, daring to hope. But as they left, Boone's deputy, loyal to Caleb, overheard and alerted the Baron. Hours later, Boone betrayed them, leading Caleb's men to their hideout. Awinita's stomach dropped as they were seized, Thomas taking a brutal blow to the chest. Dragged to a dank cell, Caleb loomed over her, demanding the necklace's secret. Awinita glared back, defiant despite her fear. In the dark, she reached for Thomas's hand, whispering, "I'm glad you're here." His weak grip answered, their shared resolve a flicker of light in their despair. "Stay with me, Thomas." Awinita's voice cracked as she crouched beside him in their cell, his face pale from the beating. Her own strength waned, the wound in her shoulder burning, but despair fueled her. Suddenly, a shadow moved. Tawodi, silent as a ghost, picked the lock and burst in, overpowering the guard. He hauled Thomas up, supporting Awinita as they fled into the forest, the sound of pursuit close behind. They collapsed in a thicket, Awinita's breath ragged, guilt gnawing at her for Lillian and Mary. Tawodi shared stories of the Brotherhood's crimes, stoking her anger. "We need Conti again," she decided, determined to uncover the necklace's full meaning. Thomas, wincing but resolute, agreed to go with her. As Tawodi scouted ahead, Awinita tended to Thomas, her fingers brushing his bruised cheek. "You're my strength," she said softly, her heart aching with gratitude. He smiled faintly, his hand covering hers, their closeness a quiet anchor in the storm, pushing her to keep fighting despite the odds. "Conti, tell me everything," Awinita pleaded, her voice urgent as she and Thomas reached the elder's hidden cave, the air thick with the scent of herbs. Conti's weathered face softened, his eyes tracing her features. "You are the last of a great Cherokee line," he said, revealing she was the descendant of a legendary chief who hid a treasure of sacred scrolls. He handed her a tattered map, the key to finding it. Awinita's heart swelled with pride, then shattered as shouts echoed. Caleb's men had tracked them. Conti urged her to run, but a gunshot rang out, and he fell, blood staining the cave floor. Awinita screamed, guilt and rage choking her as Thomas pulled her away, the map clutched in her hand. They hid in the underbrush, her tears falling silently. "I caused this," she whispered, but Thomas held her close, his voice steady. "You're carrying his hope now." His arms around her felt like a promise, their shared grief forging a deeper bond, urging her to honor Conti's sacrifice by protecting the treasure. "Someone's looking for you," a Cherokee scout whispered, leading Awinita and Thomas to a clearing where Jonathan Blake, a New York journalist, waited. His sharp eyes studied Awinita as she explained the necklace, the treasure, and the Brotherhood's crimes. "I've been tracking them for years," Jonathan said, offering to publish their story to expose Caleb. Awinita hesitated, fearing more danger, but the map in her pocket and Conti's death pushed her forward. "Do it," she said, handing him the ledger. Thomas stood by her, his presence reassuring. "We'll face this together," he said, his voice firm. Jonathan warned of the Brotherhood's reach, urging them to stay hidden. As they parted, Awinita and Thomas sat by a small fire, sharing dreams of a freer world. "I believe in us," she said, her hand in his, their connection a beacon of hope. The weight of their mission loomed, but Jonathan's promise and their growing love gave Awinita the strength to keep fighting. "They'll pay for this." Awinita's voice trembled with fury as she read Jonathan's article in a tattered newspaper, its words exposing the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross's crimes. Hidden in a Cherokee camp, she felt a surge of hope as whispers of outrage spread among the people, both Cherokee and white townsfolk. But Caleb struck back, branding Awinita a terrorist in a rival paper, his lies painting her as a threat. Wanted posters with her face appeared overnight, and Awinita's heart sank, her name now a target. Thomas clenched his fists, his eyes fierce. "We won't let him win." Tawodi, ever watchful, led them to a secret Cherokee stronghold deep in the hills, where Awinita rallied the warriors, her voice strong despite her fear. "We fight for our past and our future," she declared, igniting their resolve. By a quiet stream, Thomas took her hand, his voice soft but sure. "I love you, Awinita." She returned his gaze, her heart racing, and leaned in, their kiss sealing a bond that fueled her courage. The world was hunting them, but their love was a fire that refused to dim. "We need more allies," Awinita urged, her eyes scanning the Cherokee stronghold as she planned their next move. The map to the sacred scrolls burned in her pocket, and she knew protecting it meant uniting others against Caleb. Tawodi suggested the Choctaw tribe, known for their strength. Awinita, Thomas, and Tawodi set out at dawn, trekking through dense forests, their steps quick but cautious. At the Choctaw camp, the chief listened to Awinita's plea about the treasure and Caleb's crimes, but shook his head, fearing retaliation. Awinita's heart sank, but she pressed on, sharing her story of loss and hope. A young Choctaw warrior, moved by her words, secretly pledged to join them. As they left, Caleb's men ambushed, arrows flying. Awinita ducked, her pulse racing, as Tawodi fought back. Thomas grabbed her hand, pulling her to safety, his grip tight. "I'm not losing you," he said, his voice raw. They escaped, breathless, their hands still clasped, the warrior's promise and their shared danger tightening the thread between them, pushing Awinita to keep fighting. "Run!" Tawodi's shout shattered the forest's silence, as Caleb's men sprang from the trees, their blades glinting. Awinita's legs burned as she sprinted, the Choctaw warrior's warning still fresh. Caleb had tracked them. Tawodi swung his tomahawk, holding off the attackers, while Awinita stumbled, a sharp pain shooting through her foot from a hidden root. Thomas caught her, his arms strong, and half carried her to a rocky overhang. Blood seeped from her ankle, but she bit back a cry, her mind on the map tucked against her chest. The attackers closed in, but Tawodi's fierce stand bought them time, and they slipped into a narrow cave. Awinita's breath hitched, fear and pain overwhelming, but Thomas's steady hands bandaged her wound. "We're still here," he whispered, his eyes locked on hers, grounding her. The cave's darkness hid them as Caleb's men passed, and Awinita leaned against Thomas, her heart steadying. Their closeness, born of survival, felt like a vow, her resolve hardening to protect the treasure and honor those lost. "Nima, what happened?" Awinita's voice broke as her friends staggered into their cave hideout, her face bruised but eyes fierce. Nima had risked everything to find them, bringing news of Lillian, still trapped in Caleb's mansion. "She's alive but guarded," Nima said, then lowered her voice. "I overheard Caleb's men. The Brotherhood works with federal agents." Awinita's stomach twisted, the enemy's reach far greater than she'd feared. Thomas, his face set, suggested rescuing Lillian first, believing her knowledge could expose Caleb. Tawodi nodded but warned of the risks. Caleb's mansion was a fortress. Awinita agreed, her heart heavy for Lillian and Mary. They planned a night raid, Nima offering to scout ahead despite her injuries. As Nima rested, Awinita sat with Thomas, her voice soft. "You always think of others," she said, her hand brushing his. He smiled, his gaze warm, and for a moment their shared purpose felt stronger than the danger. Awinita's trust in him deepened, fueling her determination to free Lillian and strike back at the Brotherhood. "Lillian, we're here," Awinita whispered through the bars of a basement window at Caleb's mansion, her heart pounding as she, Thomas, and Tawodi crouched in the shadows. Nima had posed as a messenger, distracting the guards, giving them a narrow chance. Tawodi pried the window open, and they slipped inside, navigating dark corridors. They found Lillian, pale but defiant, in a locked cell. "I knew you'd come," she said, gripping Awinita's hand. But as Tuodi worked the lock, boots thundered above. Caleb had been tipped off. Awinita's pulse raced. She shoved the stolen ledger into Lillian's hands. "Use this if we don't make it." Guards burst in, swords drawn. Lillian shouted, drawing their attention, giving Awinita and the others a chance to flee through a hidden passage. Thomas pulled Awinita close, his breath ragged. "We'll get her back," he promised, his arms steadying her trembling frame. Their escape, bittersweet without Lillian, strengthened Awinita's resolve. Their fleeting touch, a reminder of the love that kept her fighting. They attacked the village. Nima's cry hit Awinita like a blow as they returned to the Cherokee camp, finding smoldering huts and frightened faces. Caleb's men had struck in retaliation, taking several warriors hostage. Awinita's knees buckled, guilt crashing over her for bringing this pain to her people. Tuodi urged her to focus on the treasure, the key to their fight. "It's our strength," he said, his voice firm. Awinita nodded, swallowing her tears, and turned to Thomas, who was already contacting Jonathan for help. Nima, despite a fresh wound from the attack, insisted on aiding the wounded. Awinita knelt beside her friend, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Nima squeezed her hand, unwavering. Thomas joined them, his arm around Awinita, his voice steady. "We'll make this right." His warmth anchored her, their shared grief and purpose weaving a deeper bond. Awinita stood, her heart heavy but resolute, determined to free the hostages and protect the sacred scrolls, no matter the cost. "We have to save Lillian." Awinita's voice was urgent as she huddled with Thomas and Tuodi in their forest hideout, Nima's news about Lillian's imprisonment in Caleb's mansion weighing heavily. Nima, her face bruised but resolute, added a chilling detail. She had overheard Caleb's men boasting that the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross was backed by federal agents, their power stretching far beyond Oklahoma. Awinita's heart sank, the scale of their enemy daunting, but her resolve hardened. Thomas, his eyes fierce, pushed for an immediate rescue. "Lillian knows too much about Caleb. We need her." Tuodi cautioned about the mansion's heavy guards, but agreed to plan a raid. Awinita mapped out a strategy, assigning Nima to scout despite her injuries. As they prepared, Awinita caught Thomas's gaze, his concern for her clear. "You're always thinking of others," she said softly, her fingers brushing his. He smiled, his warmth easing her fear. Their quiet moment, charged with unspoken feelings, fueled Awinita's determination to free Lillian and expose the Brotherhood, her trust in Thomas a steady anchor in the storm. "Through here, quick," Awinita whispered, her heart pounding as she, Thomas, and Tuodi slipped through a hidden tunnel beneath Caleb's mansion, Nima's scouting giving them a slim chance. They had waited for midnight, when the guards were fewest. Tuodi led, prying open a basement grate, and they found Lillian in a dank cell, her face pale but defiant. "I knew you'd come," she said, gripping Awinita's hand. Awinita passed her the ledger, whispering, "Keep this safe if we fail." As Tuodi broke the lock, shouts echoed. Caleb's men had been alerted. Awinita's pulse raced. She shoved Lillian toward the tunnel, but guards stormed in, swords flashing. Lillian threw herself at a guard, buying time, and Awinita, Thomas, and Tuodi fled through the passage, the sound of pursuit close. Outside, Thomas pulled Awinita into his arms, his voice raw. "We'll get her back." Her tears fell, guilt for leaving Lillian sharp, but his embrace strengthened her resolve. Their shared desperation deepened their bond, pushing Awinita to fight on. "This is my fault." Awinita's voice broke as she surveyed the charred remains of the Cherokee village, Caleb's men having attacked in revenge, taking warriors hostage. Her knees buckled, guilt for endangering her people, crushing her. Tuodi knelt beside her, his voice steady. "The treasure is our hope. Focus on that." Awinita wiped her tears, nodding, her mission clear. Thomas, already working to contact Jonathan, suggested using the journalist's connections to pressure Caleb. Nima, bandaged but unyielding, tended to the wounded, her strength inspiring Awinita. Kneeling by Nima, Awinita whispered, "I'm so sorry." Nima squeezed her hand, her eyes fierce. "We fight together." Thomas joined them, his arm around Awinita, his voice firm. "We'll free them all." His touch grounded her, their shared grief and purpose forging a deeper connection. Awinita stood, her heart heavy but determined, ready to rescue the hostages and protect the sacred scrolls, no matter the cost. "Jonathan, you're our chance," Awinita said, her voice urgent as she and Thomas met the journalist in a secluded forest clearing, his satchel stuffed with notes on the Brotherhood. Jonathan revealed he had gathered more evidence, letters linking the Brotherhood to federal corruption. Awinita handed him the map to the Cherokee treasure, her hands trembling. "Publish this. Show the world what they're stealing." Jonathan nodded, promising to take the story to New York papers. But Caleb's spies had followed, and as they spoke, hooves thundered nearby. Awinita's heart leaped. She shoved the map into Jonathan's hands. "Go now." Tawodi and Thomas fought off the attackers, giving Jonathan time to flee. Awinita ducked behind a tree, her breath ragged, as Thomas pulled her to safety. By a small fire later, he took her hand, his voice soft. "We're closer than ever." She leaned into him, their shared hope a quiet strength, her love for him growing as they faced the escalating danger together. "No one betrays Caleb." A scream tore through the night as Awinita, Thomas, and Tawodi hid in a ravine. Caleb's men ambushing their camp after a Cherokee traitor revealed their location. Awinita's stomach churned, betrayal cutting deep. Tawodi charged, his tomahawk flashing, driving back the attackers. Awinita grabbed Thomas, pulling him behind a boulder as arrows flew. The traitor, a young warrior named Elan, was caught, his face pale with shame. "I was scared," he begged. Awinita's heart wavered, but she spoke firmly. "Leave the village, never return." Elan fled, and the group regrouped, battered but alive. Thomas checked Awinita for wounds, his hands gentle but firm. "You held us together," he said, his eyes warm. She smiled, her fear easing at his words, their bond a lifeline in the chaos. Awinita's resolve sharpened, the sting of betrayal fueling her to protect the treasure and her people, knowing she and Thomas would face whatever came next side by side. "Lillian!" Awinita's cry echoed through the misty forest as she spotted Caleb's daughter stumbling toward their hidden camp, her clothes torn but her eyes blazing with defiance. Lillian had escaped the mansion, slipping past guards with stolen keys, and now clutched new documents proving the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross's crimes. Awinita's heart leaped, but guilt stung as Lillian apologized for her earlier doubts. "I was wrong about you," Lillian said, her voice shaky. Awinita pulled her into a fierce hug, forgiving instantly. "We're stronger together." They planned to use the documents to rally more allies, but Lillian warned of Caleb's assassins hunting her. Thomas scouted the perimeter, his face tense, then returned, his hand finding Awinita's. "You're incredible," he said, admiration in his eyes, and she smiled, her heart swelling. Tawodi mapped out their next move, urging haste. As they worked, Awinita and Thomas shared a quiet glance, their growing love a steady flame in the chaos. Lillian's return and the new evidence reignited Awinita's hope, her resolve to protect the Cherokee treasure and free her people burning brighter than ever. "We've got to show the world." Awinita's voice was urgent as she handed Lillian's documents to Jonathan in a dimly lit barn, the air thick with tension. Jonathan agreed to publish them in a local paper to stir outrage against Caleb. The article hit the streets, sparking whispers of rebellion, but Caleb's influence crushed it. his men burning copies and branding Awinita a traitor. Her face now plastered on wanted posters. Awinita's chest tightened, fear clawing at her. Lillian suggested finding white allies in a nearby town, people fed up with Caleb's greed. Awinita nodded, her mind racing, and they slipped out under cover of night, dodging patrols. Thomas stayed close, his hand brushing hers. "We'll make it through," he whispered, his voice a lifeline. They reached a safe house, an old stable, and collapsed, exhausted. In the quiet, Awinita leaned against Thomas, her voice soft. "I dream of peace, with you." His arm tightened around her, their shared hope a shield against the growing danger, pushing Awinita to keep fighting despite the odds stacking against them. "They're with us." Awinita's heart soared as a group of white farmers, their faces weathered and angry, pledged to join her fight in a cramped tavern. Tired of Caleb's land grabs, they listened as Awinita spoke of the Cherokee treasure and the Brotherhood's thefts, her voice steady despite her fear. The farmers offered weapons and a hideout, their rough hands shaking hers in solidarity. Thomas stood by her, pride in his eyes, and helped load supplies. But Caleb's spies struck, setting the farmer's barn ablaze as Awinita's group fled. One farmer, an old man named Eli, stayed to hold off the attackers, his cries echoing as the flames rose. Awinita's throat tightened, guilt and grief overwhelming her as they escaped into the night. Thomas pulled her close, his voice breaking. "He chose to fight for you." She nodded, tears falling, his embrace grounding her. Their shared loss deepened their bond, Awinita's determination flaring to honor Eli's sacrifice by exposing Caleb and protecting the sacred scrolls, no matter the cost. "Warriors, rise!" Tuodi's voice boomed through the Cherokee camp, his call rallying the fighters as Awinita stood beside him, her heart pounding with purpose. He shared tales of the Brotherhood's crimes across generations, his words igniting fury. Awinita stepped forward, her voice clear, telling of her ancestors' treasure and their duty to protect it. The warriors cheered, their fists raised, ready to fight. Thomas, though nervous, asked Tuodi to teach him combat, determined to stand with Awinita. She watched, her heart swelling with pride. But a scout reported Caleb's spy in the camp, sowing unease. Awinita's stomach churned, betrayal a fresh wound after Elan's treachery. She met Thomas by the fire, her voice soft. "You're learning for me," she said, touching his hand. He nodded, his eyes warm. Always. Their quiet moment, filled with unspoken love, steadied her. Awinita's resolve hardened, the warriors' unity and Thomas's loyalty fueling her to face Caleb's schemes and safeguard her people's legacy. "Traitor!" Awinita's shout rang out as the Cherokee warrior seized a spy, a young man named Chula, caught sending messages to Caleb. His eyes widened in fear as he confessed Caleb's plan to attack the camp at dawn. Awinita's heart raced, anger mixing with dread, but she saw a chance. "We'll trick them," she said, proposing a fake camp to lure Caleb's men. The warriors built decoys, piling branches to mimic tents, while Tuodi scouted the enemy's approach. The plan worked, Caleb's men charging the empty site, but a stray arrow struck a young warrior, Tyanita, who fell, lifeless. Awinita's breath caught, grief crashing over her as she knelt by Tyanita's body. Thomas found her, his voice gentle. "You're their hope, Awinita." She leaned into him, her tears soaking his shirt, his strength holding her together. The victory was bittersweet, but Awinita's pain sharpened her focus, her love for Thomas and her people driving her to outsmart Caleb and protect the treasure at all costs. "Strike fast, strike true," Awinita's voice rang out as she and Tuodi drilled the Cherokee warriors in their forest camp, their movements sharp despite the grief for Tyanita. Her heart pounded with purpose, the map to the sacred scrolls a constant weight in her pocket. Lillian, now a fierce ally, worked with Jonathan to send their evidence to national papers. hoping to expose the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross. Thomas, sweat on his brow, trained with a rifle under Tawodi's guidance, his determination to protect Awinita clear in every shot. Nima, though bandaged, organized supplies, her spirit unbroken. Awinita planned a surprise attack on Caleb's weapons cache to weaken his forces. A young warrior twisted his ankle during drills, slowing their preparations, and Awinita's worry flared, but she pushed on. By a quiet campfire, she sat with Thomas, sharing the story of her mother's necklace, her voice soft. "It's why I fight." He took her hand, his eyes warm. "And I fight for you." Their tender moment, filled with deepening love, steeled Awinita's resolve to lead her people and destroy Caleb's power. "Fire!" Awinita shouted, her heart racing as she led her warriors through the dark, their torches igniting Caleb's weapons cache in a remote valley. The wooden crates exploded in flames, the Brotherhood's rifles and powder reduced to ash. Her group moved like shadows, striking before the guards could react. But Caleb's reinforcements arrived, their shouts piercing the night, forcing Awinita to signal a retreat. She grabbed Thomas, pulling him behind a boulder as bullets flew, her pulse hammering. 3 warriors were captured in the chaos, their cries haunting her. Thomas, grazed by a bullet, winced but kept moving, his hand tight on hers. "We hurt them," he said, his voice strained but firm. Awinita's guilt surged, the loss of her warriors a heavy blow, but she nodded, determined to free them. As they hid in a ditch, Thomas pressed his forehead to hers, his breath ragged. "We're still fighting." Their shared defiance, born of pain and love, fueled Awinita's drive to regroup and strike again, her heart set on victory. "We're stronger together." Awinita's voice echoed in the Cherokee camp as she rallied her battered group, the loss of their warriors a wound that spurred her on. Lillian suggested contacting the Creek tribe for support, their numbers vital against Caleb's growing forces. Tawodi sent a runner with Awinita's plea, and she worked tirelessly, tending to the wounded and planning their next move. Thomas cleaned his rifle, his jaw set, ready to fight again. The Creek chief arrived, skeptical but swayed by Awinita's story of the sacred scrolls and the Brotherhood's crimes. He pledged warriors and supplies, and Awinita's hope surged, her people no longer alone. They held a ceremony to seal the alliance, drums echoing in the night, but Caleb's scouts attacked, a Creek warrior falling to a blade. Awinita's heart clenched, grief and anger mixing as she helped bury the fallen. Thomas held her, his voice steady. "We'll honor him." Their embrace, warm amidst the loss, strengthened Awinita's resolve to protect the treasure and defeat Caleb, her love for Thomas a constant light. "Let Caleb think he's won." Awinita's eyes blazed as she proposed a daring plan in the flickering light of the camp, her voice steady despite the risks. To get close to Caleb, she suggested pretending to surrender, luring him into a trap. Thomas frowned, his worry clear, but nodded, trusting her. They sent a false message to Caleb, claiming Awinita would trade the map for the hostages' freedom. Caleb, smug, invited her to his fortified ranch for talks. Awinita, Tawodi, and Thomas planned an ambush, hiding warriors in nearby gullies. But as they approached the ranch, Caleb's men sprang a trap, their rifles trained on Awinita's group. Her heart sank, the trail stinging. They'd been outplayed. Tawodi fought fiercely, giving them a chance to flee, but Awinita's hope wavered, the hostages still out of reach. In a hidden thicket, Thomas pulled her close, his voice fierce. "We'll never give up." Her tears fell, but his strength steadied her, their love a spark that reignited her fight to outsmart Caleb and save her people. "Move now." Tawodi's shout cut through the chaos as he led Awinita and Thomas out of Caleb's trap, arrows whistling past. Awinita's arm bled from a shallow cut, but she ran, her breath ragged, the map still safe against her chest. Thomas supported her, his eyes scanning for danger, guiding them to a rocky outcrop. Lillian, who had trailed them, brought word that Jonathan's articles were gaining traction, pressuring Caleb. Awinita's heart lifted, but they needed more allies to turn the tide. Thomas suggested contacting activists in Washington through Jonathan's network. Tuodi scouted ahead, ensuring their path was clear. Awinita's strength faltered, pain and fear overwhelming, but Thomas's hand found hers, his voice soft. "You're why I keep going." She leaned into him, her heart steadying, their love a quiet vow in the face of danger. Awinita's resolve hardened, the growing support and her bond with Thomas driving her to protect the sacred scrolls and free her captured warriors, no matter the cost. "Keep running." Tuodi's voice was a lifeline as Awinita stumbled through the forest, her arm bleeding from Caleb's ambush. The map to the Cherokee treasure pressed against her chest. Tuodi fought off pursuers, his tomahawk a blur, while Thomas steadied Awinita, his grip firm despite his own exhaustion. They reached a rocky outcrop, collapsing in its shadow as Caleb's men passed by. Lillian, trailing behind, brought news. Jonathan's articles were spreading, stirring outrage against the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross. Awinita's heart flickered with hope, but they needed more allies. Thomas suggested Jonathan contact activists in Washington to pressure the government. Tuodi scouted a safe path forward, his eyes sharp. Awinita's strength wavered, pain and fear clawing at her, but Thomas's hand found hers, his voice gentle. "You're my reason to fight." She leaned into him, her resolve reigniting, their love a quiet anchor. With new allies possible, Awinita focused on the next step, determined to free her captured warriors and protect the sacred scrolls, her bond with Thomas a steady flame guiding her through the darkness. "We need proof," Awinita whispered urgently as she, Thomas, and Tuodi crept toward a Brotherhood warehouse under moonlight, its walls hiding records of their crimes. Lillian had revealed its location before being recaptured, her sacrifice weighing on Awinita's heart. They slipped past guards, Tuodi silencing one with a swift blow. Inside, Awinita rifled through crates, her hands shaking, and found letters tying the Brotherhood to federal corruption. This could end them, she breathed, tucking them into her shawl. But a guard's shout shattered the silence, gunfire erupting. Awinita's pulse raced. She grabbed Thomas, dodging bullets as they fled. Lillian, caught trying to help, was seized again, her cries echoing. Tuodi cleared a path, but Awinita's guilt surged, another ally lost. Outside, Thomas held her, his voice fierce. "We'll save her." Their desperate embrace, charged with shared pain, deepened Awinita's determination. The letters were a weapon, and she vowed to use them to free Lillian and expose Caleb, her love for Thomas fueling her fight against the odds. "Publish it all," Awinita urged Jonathan, her hands trembling as she handed over the stolen letters in a hidden barn, their words damning the Brotherhood. Jonathan's eyes gleamed, promising to send the evidence to national papers, enough to shake Caleb's empire. The news spread like wildfire, public outrage growing, but Caleb retaliated, ordering his men to hunt Awinita's group. Wanted posters multiplied, her name a curse across Oklahoma. Awinita rallied the Cherokee and Creek warriors, her voice steady despite fear. "We fight for our ancestors." Thomas trained harder, his rifle steady, vowing to protect her. Lillian, still captive, sent a coded message through a freed warrior, confirming she was alive. Awinita's heart lifted, clinging to hope. By a quiet river, Thomas pulled her close, his voice soft. "We're so close, Awinita." She kissed him, their love a fierce light in the gathering storm, pushing her to lead her people toward the final battle, ready to face Caleb and save those she'd lost. "We stand together," Awinita's voice rang out in the Cherokee camp, rallying warriors for the fight to protect the sacred scrolls. Tuodi shared a plan to secure the treasure's cave, his strategy sharp. Lillian escaped once more, arrived with fresh evidence, her courage inspiring all. Jonathan reported that Washington officials were investigating the Brotherhood, their power cracking. Awinita organized a ceremony, drums echoing as warriors prayed for strength. Caleb, sensing the tide turning, amassed his largest force yet, his spies circling. Awinita's stomach knotted, the battle looming, but she stood tall, her people's trust anchoring her. Thomas, now a skilled fighter, checked her gear, his hands lingering. "We'll face this side by side," he said, his eyes warm. She nodded, her heart full, their love a vow to survive. The ceremony's firelight danced on their faces, Awinita's resolve burning brighter, ready to lead her warriors against Caleb, protect the treasure and honor her ancestors no matter the cost. "Hold the line!" Awinita shouted as the Brotherhood's men stormed their forest stronghold, the clash of steel and gunfire deafening. Warriors fought fiercely, guarding the path to the treasure cave. Tuodi led a flank, diverting Caleb's forces, his shouts rallying the defenders. Thomas shielded Awinita, taking a deep cut to his arm, blood soaking his sleeve. She gasped, fear gripping her, but he pushed her forward. "Keep going!" Lillian confronted Caleb amid the chaos, hurling accusations of his crimes, her voice cutting through the fray. Awinita sprinted toward the cave, her heart pounding, the map guiding her steps. Caleb's men closed in, their numbers overwhelming, but the warriors held firm. Awinita's breath caught, Thomas's injury a stark reminder of the stakes. She grabbed his hand, her voice desperate. "Stay with me." His pained smile answered, their love a defiant spark in the battle's fury, driving Awinita to reach the cave and secure the treasure, her people's legacy hanging in the balance. "Inside now." Awinita's voice was sharp as she ducked into the treasure cave, its walls glowing with ancient carvings. She found the sacred scrolls, their delicate hides etched with Cherokee history, her heart swelling with awe. Tuodi burst in, his face grim but proud. "You're my sister," he said, revealing their shared blood, a secret kept to protect her. Awinita's eyes widened, joy and shock mixing, but Caleb's men breached the cave, their torches flaring. She clutched the scrolls, fighting back with a knife, her movements fierce. Thomas staggered in, his wound slowing him, but he tackled a guard, saving Awinita. Tuodi roared, holding the entrance, his strength buying time. Awinita's heart raced, the scrolls her people's soul, and she vowed to protect them. Thomas collapsed beside her, his hand gripping hers. "I'd do anything for you," he gasped. She kissed his forehead, tears falling, their love a fierce anchor as they braced for the fight. Awinita's spirit unyielding in the face of danger. "No, Tuodi!" Awinita's scream tore through the cave as her brother, blood streaming from a deep wound, stood firm at the entrance, his tomahawk flashing against the Brotherhood's men. His eyes met hers, fierce and loving as he shouted, "Protect the scrolls!" A final clash, and Tuodi fell, his body shielding Awinita from a hail of bullets, his sacrifice stopping the attacker's advance. Her heart shattered, grief choking her as she clutched the sacred scrolls, their weight now heavy with his loss. Thomas, weak from his own wounds, pulled her back, his voice hoarse. "He gave us a chance," Awinita sobbed, but Lillian's arrival with Cherokee reinforcements drove the enemy back. They carried the scrolls out, Awinita's steps faltering, her brother's face etched in her mind. Thomas held her close, his arms steady despite his pain. "Tuodi lives in you," he whispered. Their shared sorrow bound them tighter, Awinita's resolve flaring through her tears, determined to honor her brother by saving the treasure and defeating Caleb, no matter the cost. "Face me, Caleb!" Awinita's voice thundered outside the cave, the scrolls safe in her hands as she confronted Caleb Warrick, his face twisted with rage. Warriors and allies surrounded them, the Brotherhood's men faltering. Awinita held up the scrolls, her voice unwavering. "Your crimes end here." She recounted the murders, the thefts, the Brotherhood's betrayal, her words rallying the crowd. Caleb lunged, desperate, but Thomas tackled him, pinning him down. Lillian stepped forward, brandishing the stolen letters, her voice sharp. "The world knows your sins." Jonathan, scribbling furiously, captured every word for the papers. Caleb's men surrendered, their leader broken. Awinita's heart pounded, victory bittersweet without Tewodi. Thomas stood beside her, his hand in hers, his presence a quiet strength. "We did it," he said, his eyes warm. She squeezed his hand, their love a beacon in the triumph, fueling Awinita's determination to ensure the scroll's safety and bring justice, her brother's sacrifice never forgotten. "Caleb's finished." Awinita's voice carried hope as she read Jonathan's latest article, the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross exposed across the nation. Federal agents arrested Caleb and his allies, their corruption laid bare by the letters and scrolls. Awinita testified in court, her words steady, honoring Tewodi and Mary. Lillian, now a vocal advocate, rallied support for Cherokee rights, her courage inspiring. Thomas, his arm healed, worked beside Awinita, their shared glances filled with pride. The scrolls were enshrined in a Cherokee sanctuary, a symbol of resilience. Awinita's heart ached for those lost, but the justice won eased her pain. By a quiet stream, Thomas took her hand, his voice soft. "We built something real." She smiled, leaning into him, their love a steady flame. The victory was hers, but the cost lingered. Awinita's resolve firm to lead her people forward, ensuring the Brotherhood's crimes would never be repeated, her heart anchored by Thomas's unwavering support. "We rise again," Awinita declared, her voice strong as she led the Cherokee in rebuilding their village, the scars of battle fading under new homes and fields. The scrolls, now in a tribal museum, drew visitors, their stories uniting tribes. Lillian helped establish a school, teaching Cherokee children their heritage, while Thomas opened a forge, his hammers ringing with purpose. Jonathan's book on their fight spread their tale, earning praise. Awinita worked tirelessly, her leadership a beacon, though grief for Tewodi lingered. She and Thomas walked the village at dusk, their hands clasped, dreaming of a future free of fear. "This is home," she said, her heart full. He kissed her forehead, his love a constant. The community's strength reflected Awinita's own, her pain tempered by hope, her determination to preserve her people's legacy unwavering, each step a tribute to those who fought beside her. "For Mary, for Tewodi." Awinita's voice broke as she stood before a gathered crowd, leading a ceremony to honor the fallen. A stone monument, carved by Thomas, bore their names, its surface gleaming under the sun. She shared their stories, her words weaving love and loss, the Cherokee vowing to protect their heritage. Lillian and Jonathan joined, their presence a testament to the fight's impact. Awinita's tears fell as she placed flowers at the stone, her heart heavy yet lifted by her people's unity. Thomas stood beside her, his hand steadying hers. "They'd be proud," he said, his voice thick with emotion. She leaned into him, their love a quiet strength, easing her grief. The ceremony ended with songs, the air alive with hope. Awinita's resolve deepened, her leadership rooted in sacrifice, her heart tied to Thomas and her people, ready to face any challenge to keep their legacy alive. "I am my father's daughter," Awinita whispered, her fingers tracing old letters she found in Kanti's belongings, revealing her father was a chief killed by the Brotherhood. The truth hit hard, pride and sorrow mixing as she shared it with Thomas, who helped her record her family's history. Nima, now a village storyteller, wove the tale into Cherokee lore, keeping it alive. Lillian aided with research, uncovering more about Awinita's lineage. Awinita felt closer to her ancestors, their strength flowing through her. She walked with Thomas to a sacred grove, her voice soft. "They guide me, like you do." He pulled her close, his eyes warm. "I'll always be here." Their love, steady and deep, grounded her as she embraced her heritage. Awinita's heart swelled, her leadership fueled by her past, her determination to protect her people's future unwavering, each step a bridge between her ancestors and the world she was building. "Our story lives." Awinita's voice carried pride as she read letters from across the nation, inspired by her fight against the Brotherhood of the Holy Cross. Her tale had sparked a movement, other tribes rising to protect their heritage, their voices echoing hers. Jonathan's articles won awards, his words painting Awinita as a beacon of courage. She was invited to speak in Washington, a chance to share the Cherokee's strength. Thomas packed to join her, his quiet pride warming her heart. Lillian founded a fund for native rights, her passion a legacy of their struggle. Awinita's chest swelled, the impact of their victory healing old wounds, though Tawodi's absence lingered. At dusk, she and Thomas stood on a hill, watching the sunset paint the sky gold. "We changed the world," she said, her hand in his. He kissed her gently, his love steady. "And we're just starting." Their shared dream fueled Awinita's resolve, her leadership, a bridge to a future where her people thrived, her heart anchored by Thomas and the hope they'd built together. "They're back!" Awinita's heart raced as a scout reported remnants of the Brotherhood plotting revenge, their whispers threatening her village. She rallied the Cherokee, her voice firm, refusing to let fear take hold. Thomas fortified the village, his forge crafting new tools for defense. Lillian and Jonathan exposed the plot in a swift article, rallying public support. Awinita led a patrol, capturing the conspirators before they could strike, her hands steady despite the danger. The victory was swift, the Brotherhood's last gasp extinguished. Her people cheered, their trust in her unyielding. Awinita's relief, mixed with vigilance, knowing peace was fragile. That night, Thomas found her by the fire, his arms wrapping around her. "You keep us safe," he said, his voice thick with love. She leaned into him, their bond a fortress against any threat. Awinita's determination burned, her leadership rooted in unity, ready to face any challenge to protect her people and the legacy they'd fought for. "For our children," Awinita declared, her voice resonant as she opened a Cherokee cultural center, its walls adorned with the sacred scrolls. She taught young ones their history, her words weaving pride and resilience. Thomas built the center's framework, his hammer echoing with purpose. Lillian advised on education, ensuring the center's reach. Jonathan returned, filming Awinita's lessons, his camera capturing her strength for the world. The village flourished, its spirit unbreakable, a testament to their fight. Awinita's heart swelled, though memories of Mary and Tawodi brought quiet tears. Standing before the center, she turned to Thomas, her voice soft. "This is our forever." He smiled, pulling her close, their love a foundation for the future. Awinita's resolve shone, her leadership a gift to her people, her life with Thomas a promise of hope, carrying the Cherokee legacy forward with every step. "Justice is ours," Awinita's voice rang out as she stood in the village square, the sacred scrolls enshrined behind her, a symbol of triumph. The Brotherhood of the Holy Cross lay in ruins, its leaders jailed, federal corruption exposed. Awinita, now a revered leader, guided her people with wisdom, their trust a crown she wore with humility. Thomas stayed by her side, their home a haven of love and strength. Lillian's advocacy reshaped laws, giving native voices power. Jonathan's global reports ensured their story endured, a call for justice. Awinita's heart ached for Mary and Tawodi, their sacrifices etched in her soul, but their loss fueled her purpose. At twilight, she and Thomas stood hand in hand, their love a quiet victory. "We made it," she whispered, tears mingling with joy. The crowd's cheers echoed, their unity a testament to resilience. Awinita's legacy, woven with love and sacrifice, promised a future where her people thrived, their story a beacon for all who sought justice.